Hello, and welcome to lecture number 6, where we will discuss the initial meeting between the consultant and the client. The first thing to understand is how the buyer actually plans on making a decision. Now, there will be certain parameters that the buyer or the client company may establish in terms of who needs to participate and what proofs have to be provided back and forth to demonstrate capabilities and competencies, but I'm really referring to the process that the buyer goes through internally, mentally, as they begin to assess each of the various solutions being provided to them by different consulting organizations. In your workbook, you may have read about the importance of pain versus latent pain. A latent pain is an annoyance, the cost of doing business, something we all have to tolerate. It may be annoying, it may be difficult, but we don't have a solution in mind as to how to overcome it. Whereas a pain has now reached the level that it requires our attention. We have to do something about this. So the buyer has to first go from latent pain to pain. By virtue of calling in a consultant, it is likely they've already made that transition from latent to pain, or if they're either at the pain point or they're in their transition. After that, they have to come up with a vision of a solution. Okay, so we recognize what the problem is, we know we have to fix it, but we're somewhat stumped as to how best to go about it. Let's call in the consultant and see what others have done. Let's hear what the expert who has helped others achieve this, how this consultant can help us envision a better way to accomplish our goals. Only after they've gone through that process can they then decide to take action. And of course, at each of those steps and stages, they're going to have different concerns. Are my needs being met? What's the risk? What's the cost? What's going to happen if this succeeds? What happens if it fails? Etc. So you have to go through the cost justification. Are we going to get the ROI, obviously, before you can take action? So think of it as latent pain. It's a problem. Pain, this hurts enough, I want to take steps to correct it. A vision of a solution. What would it take for us to improve upon this? Then, is it worth it? Can we justify this as the return? And then we'll take our action once we've made our determination that it does make sense. So, in our initial meeting, it may take more than one single meeting, but in our initial entry between client and consultant, we have to come up with those stages to make sure we know where we are in the process and can best align how to engage with each other, client to consultant, so that we can make progress. Some of the ways to clarify what exactly is the problem and what are some of the potential solutions are to use 3 tools. First one is very easy. You just ask the question, why, 5 times. And what this attempts to do is to dig more deeply than just the symptomatic level and get at a cause level. However, a warning there, you should ask a number of different people from different backgrounds and experiences to make sure you're not getting a biased view of what the problem is and what a potential solution might look like. But if you just simply ask the question, why, 5 times, each time you get a response, then you respond back, why that? Why is this the way it is? How come that's occurring? Those kinds of questions, you can begin to dig more deeply. Second thing to look at is what's called a SWOT analysis, S-W-O-T, very commonly used in business practices, stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. List what are the strengths that the company, the department, the function, the individual have. What are the weaknesses that person is vulnerable at, or the function is vulnerable at, the opportunities and the threats. And by doing that, you can begin to uncover, perhaps, what are some of the causes, the root causes of the issue to be addressed. The third tool I'll recommend is called either an Ishikawa diagram, taken from the quality movement over in Japan, or sometimes referred to as the fishboning exercise, where you look at various functions or factors that have an influence on the problem and determine some of the sub-points to each of those so you can identify where the issue exists and how it is confounded by other aspects of the business process.